Well, Joe Biden finally has made a decision. He decided to not run for president. We're going to tell you why he's not getting in and what that could mean for one Hillary Clinton. Then Paul Ryan speaking out as he says he's willing to actually be the next Speaker of the House, but he's got a list of conditions. We're going to tell you what that means for a party in turmoil. Then another tragedy is a fourth NYPD officer killed on the job in less than a year. Our guest, a retired NYPD lieutenant, who has a personal perspective on what cops are now facing. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we start tonight with Joe Biden, the vice president, finally making a decision about a presidential run. He evoked the death of his son Beau, and he announced that he is in fact not running for president during remarks he gave at the Rose Garden earlier this afternoon.
As my family and I have worked through the grieving process, I've said all along what I've said time and again to others, that it may very well be that that process, by the time we get through it, closes the window on mounting a realistic campaign for president, that it might close. I've concluded it has closed.
Now, even though he's not running, Biden said he will still be involved in the process.
But while I will not be a candidate, I will not be silent. I intend to speak out clearly and forcefully to influence as much as I can where we stand as a party and where we need to go as a nation.
All right, let's bring in our panel. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Andrew's got an investigative piece later on in the show on an issue much closer to home on the political front. Okay, for me, Dom, in many ways, if people forgot about Joe Biden, the candidate, you were reminded, I think, of the good and the bad. I think there's a connectivity that he has, that he talks and you feel he's speaking off the cuff and from the heart when he speaks. You believe it's genuine with him, right? But then you're reminded about how undisciplined sometimes he can be, where he's going all over the place, and you almost were thinking the president was going to be like, all right, Joe, wrap it up here, you know? It would have been an interesting, next 6 months or so if he was in the race. And I'm curious, do you think today that the Hillary camp is glad he's out because it's going to ease the path, or, as many have said, it would have made her a better candidate if she got pushed in a primary process by the vice president?
No doubt about it. Hillary Clinton's camp is going, whew, because all she remembers, and it's going to be a scar for the rest of her life, is that she was up 20 plus points 8 years ago, and up comes this new starter, Barack Obama, and next thing you know, he takes the Democratic nomination from her. So no elected official wants to look at an election, a primary. Biden is universally liked. We can establish that, Richard. But the window he referred to, the window of opportunity, I hate to correct the Vice President of the United States, but that window was never open. There was never a possibility, as I said on day one, of him. He could have run.
Let's say Dom's 100% right, that the pathway, you just didn't see it. He mentioned he ran out of time here, but money, organization, all the rest. I think we can assume Dom's right, barring an indictment of her or something else. However, is she a better candidate today for not being challenged? Because Biden also, he made a few points today. Take a listen to what he said, Andrew, about who the nominee of the Democrats, whoever that may be. It wasn't so veiled. He was taking a shot at a position Hillary had taken not too recently.
I don't believe, like some do, that it's naive to talk to Republicans. I don't think we should look at Republicans as our enemies. They are our opposition. They're not our enemies.
Reference, Andrew, to the most recent debate that everyone thinks Hillary did well, but when listing her enemies, she rattled off the Republican Party as one. Biden obviously is taking issue with that and a few other things, what happened in the Situation Room before the bin Laden raid, etc. Again, how do you think the dynamic plays out from this point on?
Well, first of all, I think that Biden there was speaking as a non-candidate, and so he has the ability to be more conciliatory towards the Republicans. I don't think he would have used the same language if he was in the race. And I think he contradicted himself while he was giving the discussion about what happened in the Situation Room.
He definitely took a shot at Hillary there.
No, he did, but he was also contradicting himself in the Situation Room because he's given different versions of that story as we've gone on over time. Look, I agree with Dominic that there was never really a path for Joe Biden in this race. At least 2/3 of the panel tonight said as much in previous conversations. Just had to get that in.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
But I also think that Biden is actually in a better position now to be the backup to Hillary Clinton than he was yesterday. I mean, as a non-candidate, he's freed from the trials and tribulations of running the campaign.
You took a shot at her today?
I don't think he did take a shot.
Come on.
I don't think he took a shot at her.
That enemy line?
I think he was setting up the path for a general election campaign, ostensibly for Hillary, and you'll hear Hillary say the same thing as we prepare for a general election campaign. Oh, and by the way, if Hillary can't answer the bell for any reason, and it is Biden, now he's better set up to go after the Republicans, which is still a possibility if something happens to Hillary between now and the convention.
And obviously the reference is tomorrow. There will be the Benghazi hearings, and of course we'll be covering that tomorrow night on RFL. But there was other news in Washington today beyond the non-announcement, if you will, of Joe Biden. That was on the Republican front and the race for Speaker. Paul Ryan said he's willing to run, but only if, quote, the party can put an end to the antics of the bomb throwers. Now, he said that last line off camera. Now, here's what he had to say when the cameras were rolling.
This is a very dire moment, not just for Congress, not just for the Republican Party, but for our country. And if I can truly be a unifying figure, then I will gladly serve. But we need to do this as a team. And it needs to include fixes that ensure that we do not experience constant leadership challenges and crises.
All right, and not too veiled a reference there to the Freedom Caucus, 30 or 40 professional troublemakers who made life impossible for the guy on our screen, John Boehner, who said enough's enough. And then when everybody thought, hey, if we can just get Ryan, they even indicated he could be too far left, as we've talked about. So Ryan does what I think is a smart thing. Basically list your demands. We don't know what they are right now, but he basically said, if I take this job, the 30 of you better shut up, right? I don't want to hear any more taking us off financial cliffs. I don't want to hear any more that you're going to stage coups and all the rest or hold up everything if you don't get your way. You don't run the show, I do. Sounds good, but can you really herd these cats, Don?
Absolutely not. Masterful what Paul Ryan, and I want to be clear, you cannot control these folks. They may say one thing today, and tomorrow it's a completely different story. Paul Ryan is doing this in the best possible way that he can. It's a masterful performance, and he's basically telling them put up or shut up. But at the end of the day, Richard, these wildcats, and that is exactly the term that I use, they're going to turn on him the same way they turned on Boehner and others.
He's also playing the reluctant warrior role. Yes, I'll come in and save the party, but only if you allow me to. And if for any reason it doesn't work, he looks like a hero.
You do the same thing too, wouldn't you? I would.
I would consider being Speaker of the House.
No, but you play the reluctant warrior, just like you said. I would be like, you want to do it? Here it is. And if you don't want, I'll be happy to remain chairman of the Budget Committee, Ways and Means, and all the rest. He's got a really good job. And to take this on right now, you're asking for headaches. But if he wants to keep this national profile of him, if he can find a way to at least unify a caucus, he's got a shot. The curious thing is, Democrats right now, okay? If you're Pelosi and friends in the House, that you obviously believe, just by being a citizen, we don't want to go over the cliff again with the debt crisis and the debt limit, okay? So they believe they could have somebody with Ryan they can at least have a mature conversation with. Conversely, do you really always want to help your enemy in an election year or in the beginning of an election year? So they're in an interesting spot too. How much do they help Ryan out? Where if he can give some concessions back to this Freedom Caucus, he'll be able to get legislation at least through to at least keep us running. And it does look like it's we're going to have a deal on this. Or does he say, or do they say, we're not helping you out at all. You're on your own. You deal with these folks here. And if it falls down, it's going to be on your head. And the American public will remember this next November.
Option number B, by far. Because the Democrats are not going to give up on their ideas, Richard. They want to be able to say to voters, listen, here's where we stand. Here's what we were willing to do to negotiate. We were always willing to cut a deal and compromise, but the other side is not.
Never. What's the old saying? Never stop your opponent when they're defeating themselves or something like that. Why would Democrats step in and help out at this point?
Because you don't want to go over a cliff again. We saw the impact
it's
of the
so
country.
clearly the Republican cliff at this point, and they can actually make a valid argument that they couldn't make even in the year of the government shutdown, that we deserve to be in control of Congress. Just look at the clown car that the other side has put forward. They can't even agree on Paul Ryan.
For anybody out there to believe, if you're coming late to this game, that Paul Ryan is even in the area code of moderate, He proudly, just go back when he was the running mate here of Mitt Romney, he proudly was on the far right end of the Republican Party, and he was arch conservative, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. Look it up on your own time. You will see this guy's as right as it gets. But to the Freedom Caucus, the scariest thing I heard is they think he's a lefty. That's how much we're talking about, 30 or 40 people who are gumming up all the works in Washington, not that it doesn't have the problems on its own.
And Rich, Republicans are already turning on Ryan, not just because of his liberal position, but Tim Huselkamp, who's a member of the Freedom Caucus, has said that he's skeptical of Ryan, and it's conservative media that's really bashed Ryan so far. They've likened him to Caesar, they've called him an emperor, and they called him a disaster of a candidate, talking about his failed run for VP in 2012. So they're now hammering Paul Ryan for just dipping his toe into this process. Imagine what happens. Let's say the Freedom Caucus actually agrees and allows Ryan to get the speaker's gavel. He'll be lambasted in conservative media. That hurts his career down the road. I don't think Ryan really wants the result of this. I don't think he wants to be speaker.
Agreed. That's why he listed the demands.
Right. Because even if he wins and he gets the concessions he wants, he still gets hammered in the press, and that hurts his
And the
overall.
vote is scheduled for?
Next week.
Next week. Okay. And we want to get you involved in our conversation. So head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question tonight. Will the new speaker, whether it's Ryan or whoever it is, be able to rein in the GOP, and as Paul Ryan called them, bomb throwers? I already know Dominic says no. Now, when we come back, a tragedy very close to home. Another NYPD officer has been killed in the line of duty. Officer Randolph Holder, the fourth cop murdered in just the past 11 months. We will talk to a retired NYPD lieutenant about the atmosphere out there and what police are facing on the streets.